The stars above the throne world of Cerulean burned with artificial brilliance, arranged into perfect lines and holy shapes by centuries of cosmic engineering. Trillions of Zorathians watched the sky from their worlds, their homes, their command, seats waiting, breath held, for the moment they had been promised for generations. The day the Empire crowned its most glorious emperor, Svaltharan the Absolute, and declared full domination over all known galaxies. On the surface of the throne world, a city the size of a moon buzzed with ships, parades, fire displays, and golden light that danced across the polished steel roads. Giant statues of past emperors turned slowly under orbital spotlight arrays, and chants echoed like thunder through massive towers. The entire city was built on top of the bones of conquered worlds, literal fragments of enemy planets forged into the floor beneath the feet of the high houses. It was tradition. It was a message. We rule because we must. On the highest balcony, Emperor Valtharan stood tall, his armor laced with light, a flowing cape of living silk trailing behind him like a comet's tail. His face was sharp and calm, untouched by age, enhanced by Empire genetics and pride. The staff in his hand glowed with the sigil of the 7 ruling stars. Around him, the high priests sang the anthem of final obedience. Long, deep chant, declaring the absolute dominance of the Zorathian race across the cosmos. The Emperor raised his hand, signaling silence. All across the Empire, screens zoomed in on that single movement. Children paused. Soldiers froze. Even the AI priests stopped their calculations. This was the moment, the declaration that no species, no planet, no idea could stand against the Zorathian order. The Emperor opened his mouth to speak, and then small blue ship blinked into orbit. It was tiny, old adjunct-class explorer, barely holding together. It looked like a flying can of rusted bolts. It floated near the grand broadcasting array as if it had no idea what was happening. Then, to the horror of every Zorothian tuned in, a voice cut through the sacred silence. "Yo, anyone there?" "The Empire. You guys take delivery orders?" A gasp rolled across the entire Empire. On every screen, the Emperor's face twitched. On the ground, guards began scrambling, shouting in coded tongues, trying to jam the frequency. But the signal kept cutting through, louder, messier. The screen split. Half showed the shocked Zorathian court. The other half showed the cockpit. Of the human ship, inside were 4 humans. One had a baseball cap turned backward. Another was chewing something loudly. A third was dancing in her seat to music that was clearly annoying the Zorathians. The fourth, their pilot, leaned close to the camera and waved. "This is the Jackrabbit 7, he said, grinning. "Sorry to interrupt the, space fashion show, but we were just passing by and couldn't resist tuning in." "Is this some kind of cosplay thing, or do you guys actually wear those robes in battle?" The entire galaxy watched in disbelief. Zorathian High General Sarnath stepped forward behind the Emperor and whispered, "We will destroy them in minutes. Shall I send a destroyer?" Valtharan's lips tightened. "No, not yet." "Open a channel." A voice boomed back at the humans, cold and sharp. "This is the Zorathian Empire. You are trespassing in sacred orbit. Identify your species and purpose before you are cleansed." The pilot didn't even blink. He glanced at his crew and laughed. Did he say cleansed? "Guys, we've been threatened with vaporization like 7 times this week already." The woman leaned in. "Tell them we're from Earth." The man nodded. "Right. Sorry. We're human. From Earth. We don't do cleansing. Usually just bring snacks and sarcasm. Sometimes fireworks." One of the crew threw something toward the camera. It exploded into confetti inside the cockpit. The broadcast systems across the Empire began to glitch. Somehow the human ship was hacking into their visual feeds. Now, instead of royal music and chants, all screens showed Earth mimes, looping animals dancing, some monkey in sunglasses, and someone shouting, "No one rules the stars, Karen." Zorathian religious leaders collapsed in disbelief. The Emperor's eye twitched. "Jam them. Now," screamed the high priests. But nothing worked. The human ship wasn't attacking with weapons. It was attacking with something far more dangerous: disrespect. A new screen appeared. It was a live stream from the human's point of view, watching the Zorathian parade with sarcastic commentary. "Look at that guy's hat," the woman said. "It's like a chandelier married a jellyfish. Are they serious with that walking throne?" Another said, "He looks like he's trying to fly without wings." The Emperor slammed his fist down. "Wipe them from orbit." Fleet of 4 destroyers launched from the surface and rose toward the Jackrabbit 7. Inside the human ship, the crew barely reacted. "Well," the pilot said, flipping switches, "it was fun while it lasted. Time to run?" But the AI voice called Bob spoke from the overhead speaker. "Negative. Let's play." Suddenly, the Jackrabbit 7 twisted in a way that defied gravity, turned sideways, shot through the destroyers, left hologram duplicates in its path, and vanished behind the moon. The Empire's weapons fired at shadows. They missed every single time. The humans reappeared directly above the Emperor's balcony, hovering close enough to make eye contact. The pilot waved again. "Next time, maybe try ruling your attitude before you rule the stars." Then the ship vanished into a human-style warp jump that left behind a rainbow trail of fireworks and a song that repeated the words, "You're not that important," on loop. The broadcast died. The Empire stood in silence. The Emperor turned to his generals. Were these creatures? No one answered, far across the stars. In a backwater system ignored by most galactic maps, Earth's governments were already preparing a statement. But the crew of the Jackrabbit 7? Oh, they were already laughing over drinks in the galaxy. Had just met the one species that didn't fear thrones. They laughed at them, and it had only just begun. The Zorothian Empire's golden signal towers had never failed. They had survived black hole interference, plasma storms, even sabotage from enemies in secret wars. But today, their systems were corrupted by something they never anticipated: Earth's sarcasm. Even hours after the Jackrabbit 7 vanished from Cerealian orbit, the Empire's broadcasts continued glitching. Sacred channels played strange Earth songs with nonsensical lyrics. Royal portraits were overlaid with cartoon sunglasses. And worst of all, people across the Starslave's servants and soldiers were laughing. High General Sarnath paced across the marble command bridge, his armored boots clanking in fury. They disrupted a sacred ceremony. They hacked our fleet systems. They mocked the Emperor live. We must strike Earth now. But Emperor Valtherin remained motionless on his crystal throne, his fingers pressed together in cold silence. "Earth," he repeated. "I've never heard of this system." "Where did it come from?" Sarnath grunted. "Forgotten planet in the Orion backwaters. Their records are inconsistent. Their species was classified primitive. They've never joined any alliance." Valtherin's voice was cold. "And yet, they hijacked our holofeeds with jokes." "Permission to assemble the Solar Vengeance Fleet?" Sarnath growled. "Denied," the Emperor replied. Sarnath froze. "But they are baiting us. I want to know how." Valtherin rose slowly, his eyes burning with insult. "Mind me. Their world. I want to see what kind of lunatics would laugh at a god." Far away, deep in an asteroid belt near the neutral zone, the Jackrabbit 7 floated silently among spinning rocks. Its external lights were off. Its core reactor hummed quietly. Inside the tiny ship, chaos unfolded, but not the kind involving weapons, Dodlina. The sarcastic engineer tossed another bag of Earth popcorn toward the cockpit, where Troy, the pilot, was arguing with Bob, the ship's unpredictable AI. "That was reckless," Troy muttered. "We mocked the most powerful empire in the galaxy on live broadcast. They could have wiped us out." Bob's voice came through with mock innocence. "But they didn't, and I even added filters to their emperor's face. Did you see the puppy ears?" Lena laughed from the back. "We've gone viral, you know. All Zorathian territory is buzzing with pirate signals replaying our footage. We're more famous than the Emperor himself." "Great," Troy muttered. "Next, they'll send assassins dressed as fans." "Relax," said Lena. "We didn't just embarrass them. We made them think, and that's what scares them." Just then, the ship's radar pinged. A drone probe, small and sleek, drifted into view, Earth-manufactured, unarmed. But the message it carried was clear. Troy opened the transmission. A female voice, clean and firm, spoke. "Crew of Jackrabbit 7. This is Earth Deep Response Command. You are ordered to return to Outpost Theta immediately. You have violated multiple interstellar protocols. Your actions have drawn attention Earth did not seek." Troy sighed. "Here we go." Lena shrugged. Tension was coming sooner or later. "We didn't start this. The Empire did." Bob added. "Besides, what are they going to do ground?" "Us. We're already in space." Meanwhile, on a fringe moon called Vrelnine, deep in the heart of Zorathian territory, something strange was happening. The local population, species called the Krilt, had been under the Empire's rule for centuries. Once docile and fearful, the Krilt now gathered around flickering holograms, showing clips from the human broadcast. At first they'd watched in confusion, then amusement, now inspiration. One Krilt elder stood on a table and shouted in broken, "Galactic standard. If humans can insult the throne, why can't we?" Others cheered. Zorathian guards tried to stop them, but the citizens threw pies. Real ones, imported from Earth smuggler ships somehow. Human revolution was spreading not with guns, but with jokes. On the flagship Wrath of Heaven, General Sarnath watched the footage with rising rage. "This is infection," he growled. "They are making us look weak." His second-in-command, Commander Zai, spoke softly. "The humans did more than mock. They exposed our fear. We are an empire based on silence and fear. But they are loud." Sarnath turned slowly, and loud things are easy to silence. He activated the tactical holomap. "Find Earth. I want coordinates. We will end their laughter and fire." On Jackrabbit 7, Lena leaned back in her chair and sighed. "So now what?" Troy grinned. "We go home. We tell Earth what's coming and we prepare," Bob added. "We also back up the memes. For history." But as the ship turned toward human space, no one noticed the tiny, silent probe attached to their whole Zorathian tech, listening, watching. The Empire had heard the laughter. Now they wanted to find out why they were afraid of it, and when they came, they would find that Earth's weapons weren't built in factories. They were built in comedy clubs, classrooms, dive bars, and war zones. Weapons of spirit, of disrespect, of truth hidden behind punchlines, because the galaxy had never faced a species that laughed before they fought, and the humans. The Zorathian warship Judgment Ascending was a thing of nightmares, over 6 kilometers of black alloy, bristling with neutron cannons and shield webs strong enough to deflect asteroid impacts. Its command center was lined with throne chairs. For the elite officers, each one watching dozens of screens showing battlefield simulations and fleet formations. This was the Empire's response to insult. A sacred blade drawn from its sheath. And it had only one mission: find and erase the Jackrabbit 7. The captain of the Judgment Ascending, Commander Tyval, was not known for mercy. His body was enhanced with artificial bone plate grafts, his voice modified to instill fear even when whispering. He had conquered 7 systems, silenced 5 rebellions, and executed 2 planetary governors for hesitation. Yet today he paced with nervous anger. Not because the enemy was strong, but because they were invisible, unpredictable, and worst of all, disrespectful. "They are vermin," Tyval growled. "Fools with rusted tech and no honor. But they've made fools of us. That must be corrected." "Show no human warp trails," a junior officer reported. "They mock us, then flee into the shadows." Tyval slammed his gauntlet against the wall. "We are the Empire. We do not chase." But as his voice echoed through the bridge, the lights flickered. Then a sound, soft, ridiculous, music. From Earth, don't stop. Believing. Tyval froze. The crew blinked. "Where is that sound coming from?" "Not internal systems, Commander. It's external." On the view screens, An object appeared, a strange spinning satellite with loudspeakers and blinking lights. Not a weapon, not a beacon, a prank. It broadcast Earth music directly into the ship's hull. Attached to its side was a glowing digital face with sunglasses. It winked. Hi, Zorathians. Quick reminder, ruling galaxies is so last season. Try humility sometime. The crew scrambled to destroy it, but before they could lock weapons, the satellite exploded in a flash of glitter and confetti. No damage, just shame. The bridge was silent. Then another message appeared on the view screen. 7. Hope you liked our mixtape. For more insults, please press 1. Commander Tyval's voice shook. Find them, but it was too late. The Jackrabbit 7 had already slipped past their flank, not with speed, not with stealth, but with pure chaos. Elsewhere in the ship, systems began behaving strangely. Elevator doors opened to show holograms of cats playing piano. Alarm tones were replaced by laughter tracks. Weapon targeting systems now displayed dancing stick figures. It wasn't hacking in the traditional sense. It was cultural invasion. A virus of irony, one Earth had mastered over centuries. Tyval tried to reboot command protocols. The AI began quoting human stand-up comedy. Why did the Emperor sit on the throne? Because standing on his ego didn't reach high enough. Tyval roared in fury. Shut it off. But the crew had started to chuckle. A security officer snorted. A navigator tried to hold back a laugh. It spread like a sickness, and Tyval realized something far more terrifying than rebellion was happening. Laughter was loosening fear, and without fear, the Zorathian chain of command collapsed. On the Jackrabbit 7, the crew watched from a safe distance. Troy leaned back, sipping something that looked dangerously fizzy. You think they'll figure out it was all a decoy? Lena smirked. Eventually, but by then, we'll be halfway to Earth, and their reputation will be halfway to a joke. Bob chimed in from the ceiling. Uploading the full event to Galactic Net now. Trending tag, #throne fails. Mira, their communications officer, added, other species are messaging us. Some want to help. Others just want more music. Troy grinned. We're not just fighting tyranny. We're giving the galaxy something it's never had. Hope? Lena asked. No, he laughed. Comedy. Back aboard Judgment Ascending. Tyval's mind unraveled. The humans didn't fight fair. They didn't use rules. They didn't even care about victory. They cared about message. And their message was a weapon the Empire had no defense against it. Was chaos delivered with a wink? Their ship was a toy. But their culture? Their unpredictability? Their sheer nerve? It was a virus, and it was winning. Tyval staggered into his command chamber. Prepare warp. We returned to Cyrilline. The Emperor must be warned. But even as the stars stretched around them, he could still hear the echo, the one thing the Empire could not erase. Laughter had haunted the halls. It unglued obedience, and it was growing louder, because Earth didn't need a fleet. They only needed a signal, and now the whole galaxy was listening. The grand hall of the Zorathian Unity Spire shimmered under artificial starlight. Polished black stone floors reflected the towering statues of past emperors, each one carved with weapons raised and brows furrowed, eternal symbols of Zorathian power. At the center of the hall, a massive table shaped like the Empire's emblem stretched across a glass platform. Around it sat warlords, ambassadors, and high priests in ceremonial armor. Tension buzzed through the air like an invisible force field, but none of that compared to what hovered just outside the chamber. The Jackrabbit 7 descended onto the landing deck like a lost toy among polished warships. Its hull was dented, paint flaking, and a banner hung lopsided along the side. Now negotiating with space tyrants, no refunds. As the ramp hissed open, a Zorathian elite guard raised his weapon, expecting war beasts or assassins. Instead, out stepped Troy, thin a leather jacket with a neon pizza patch. Beside him, Lena wore mismatched combat boots and a smile that said, I dare you to underestimate me. Behind them rolled Bob, their AI companion mounted on a hover drone that had been decorated with googly eyes and an Earth sticker that read, Hello, am smarter than your religion." The guard lowered his weapon, but not out of respect, out of confusion. The human crew strolled into the treaty chamber like they were arriving late to a comedy club. Zorathian elites hissed. One priest gasped, clutching his ceremonial scroll. Troy looked around and whistled. "Nice place. A little gloomy. You guys ever try houseplants?" General Sarnath stood, lips drawn into a knife-edge line. "This is sacred ground. You mock our empire again, and you will not leave this hall alive." Lena winked. "Good thing we mock everyone, huh?" Emperor Valtherin, seated at the highest point in the chamber, motioned for silence. "Humans, you've disrupted our systems, embarrassed our fleets, and infected our worlds with humor." Troy tilted his head. Was that last one an accusation or a compliment? The Emperor ignored him. "Despite your crimes, we offer a treaty. You'll cease all unauthorized broadcasts. Surrender your technology and retract all offensive transmissions. In exchange, we will allow your species to remain unnoticed." "Ah!" Lena raised an eyebrow. "Wait, you want us to apologize for jokes?" Sarnath growled. "You will kneel." Bob floated forward and projected a hologram of an earth clown slipping. "On a banana peel. Counteroffer," Bob said. "We install speakers on every Zorathian throne that play dad jokes once a day. For balance." The room exploded in angry chatter. One diplomat stood and shouted, "This is outrageous." Another slammed a clawed hand on the table. "They insult our honor." But from the side of the room, an odd thing happened. A low, awkward laugh. Everyone turned. A young Zorathian officer had chuckled under his breath at Bob's banana peel loop. He froze, eyes wide. Then tried to explain. It caught me off guard." Valtherin's voice turned to ice. "You disgrace your bloodline." But it was too late. More chuckles followed. Nervous, forced, but laughter nonetheless. Troy folded his arms. That's the thing about laughter. Once it starts, it spreads." Sarnath slammed the treaty tablet down. "This is your last chance. Sign, surrender, or vanish." Troy stepped forward and took the treaty device. He flipped it over, pulled out a marker, and scribbled across the back. "LOL. No." He set it back on the table. "Here's what we're offering," Troy said. "Now, serious. Freedom of expression, free communication, no mind control, no silence chambers, and no worshipping people just because they wear shinier boots." Dare Sarnath started. "Yes," Lena cut in. "We dare, because fear isn't power, control isn't strength, and if mocking you shakes your empire, maybe your empire needs to fall." At that moment, Bob triggered the next part of their plan. Dozens of hidden microdrones launched earlier and parked in Ventsbake and broadcasting a live signal across every Zorathian channel. The chamber filled with static, then shifted to a live feed. The galaxy was watching. Worlds across the Empire tuned in as the human crew publicly refused the treaty. They saw Troy smirk, Lena stand tall, Bob twirl in the air making fart noises, and somewhere on a distant slave planet a child pointed at the screen and whispered, "They said no." The guard who had once raised his weapon looked again at Troy and lowered it fully, back in orbit. The Jackrabbit 7 departed at full burn, having barely escaped the treaty hall before the alarms kicked in. But the message had been delivered, not just to the Zorathian throne, but to the entire galaxy. Troy leaned back in the pilot's seat. "Think they got the point?" Lena smiled, watching the broadcast counter rise past 10 million live views. "Oh yeah." Bob chimed in, voice giddy. "We just turned their treaty into a punchline. And in systems light years away. Oppressed species saw it. They didn't see warriors. They didn't see fleets. They saw humans who said, 'Oh.' And they started to imagine what saying no felt like. The Zorathians had tried to trap the humans with words. But the humans turned their trap into a stage. And now the whole empire was the joke and the laughter. It was just getting started. On the edge of known space, where the Zorathian Empire's grip had once been tight and unquestioned, change was happening not with warships or bombs, but with echoes of laughter. Not all at once, not as a single rebellion, but in soft waves that traveled between slave worlds, mining colonies, and border outposts. The crack in the Empire's mask had begun with a joke. Now entire planets were chuckling. The first to act was Dralis, a mining moon enslaved for over a century. The Drick, the native species, were a quiet, gray-skinned people bred for silence and labor. Speaking above a whisper was punishable. Humor was outlawed. And yet deep in the echoing caverns of Shaft 9, one worker found something, a recording, smuggled through a hidden drone. A copy of the Jackrabbit 7 broadcast pixelated, patched together, surrounded by alien subtitles. The moment, Troy flipped the Zorathian treaty and wrote LOL. No in giant black letters. The Drick watching let out a sound no one on. Dralis had heard in decades a short, sharp laugh. It spread. They watched the full broadcast on loop. Laughter turned into courage. Courage turned into movement, and the next morning when the Zorathian foreman barked his usual orders, the Drick. Workers showed up wearing paper hats made from mining manuals. One held a sign, "We dig it, just not for you." The guards were too stunned to react. Word spread quickly. Other colonies began rebroadcasting human footage through hidden channels. In the prison world of Next 4 inmates painted the emperors. Face onto walls, then gave him cartoon eyes and a pig's nose. On Sector 1-2R, slaved engineers hacked public announcement systems and filled the halls with Earth music and cat videos. It made no tactical sense. It had no battle plans. But it shattered fear in a way nothing else ever had. Inside the Zorathian High Command, alarms flared across the galactic incident table. Flashing red markers flooded systems that had never once resisted. General Sarnath stood trembling with fury. Memes. Symbols. Disrespect is not rebellion, is infection. Emperor Valtharan stared coldly at the data. "They are laughing at us," yes, whispered the high priest beside him. "And in our culture, laughter is death." The Emperor turned to his generals. "How is this signal spreading so quickly? I want every comlink traced, every network cut." "It's not just signals anymore," a nervous technician replied. "We're copying behavior, painting jokes on war statues, singing in the streets. They're imitating humans." Valtharan's voice turned to a whisper of rage. "Then it is time we remind them what fear tastes like." Back aboard the Jackrabbit 7. The crew watched the reports with quiet amazement. Troy leaned forward, watching drone footage of Drick workers standing in formation, not with weapons, but with signs that said, "Laughter is oxygen." "There. Doing it," he whispered. Lena nodded. "They've stopped being afraid." Bob hovered beside them. 74 systems have now flagged the Empire's command as obsolete. 39 are openly mocking them. 4 have formed planetary comedy festivals. Troy looked stunned. "We didn't start a war. We started a movement," Bob responded cheerfully. "We accidentally invented interstellar stand-up rebellion." Mira, their communications officer, entered with a message chip. "We got another one," she said, grinning. "From a species called the Valeri. They're renaming their capital city after Earth's most sarcastic comedian." Troy laughed. "Which one?" Mira smirked. "George Carlin." But while the laughter grew, the Empire moved. Valtharan summoned his personal warship, the Star, from the forbidden docks of the Outer Ring, a vessel built not for combat, but for erasure. It carried psionic cannons designed to suppress thoughts, signal dampeners that could silence entire species, memory disruptors to rewrite cultural history if they remember the humans. Valtharan said, "They will never fear us again." And so the Star Shatter was aimed at Dralis Ground Zero of the laughter. Outbreak. But the Jackrabbit 7 had already guessed it. Troy pulled their ship from warp just hours before the attack. "We can't stop them with guns," he said, eyes narrowed. "But we can stop them with volume." Lena grinned. Time to get loud. In orbit above Dralis, Star Shatter arrived to find something unexpected. The surface of the moon was covered in lights. Thousands of beacons had been lit. In the mining pits, holograms projected Earth memes, slogans, jokes. Even 3D animations of the Emperor slipping on banana peels. The Drix stood in lines, wearing cardboard helmets and humming Earth jingles. The moment the Star Shatter powered its primary cannon, it received a signal from the Jackrabbit 7. Before you fire. Bob's voice came through. Just know that this entire moon is being streamed to every screen in the Empire. Fire on Dralis, and you fire on your reputation. Valtherin's voice thundered back. I will burn your name from memory. Troy's voice answered, calm and steady. You already lost your name. The moment the first slave laughed. Silence, then the Star Shatter. Disengaged, it turned, it fled, and Dralis erupted in cheer because the joke had landed. The Empire blinked first. The humans had never meant to start. Revolution, they were just being human, silly, disobedient, unstoppable, and now the stars were beginning to follow their rhythm. Not a war march, not a funeral chant, but the unstoppable beat of rebellion disguised as humor. Because once you teach the galaxy to laugh at tyrants, tyrants never recover. In the inner sanctum of the Empire's capital, deep beneath the glowing spires of Cerulean Prime, the supreme chamber of continuity met in absolute darkness. No candles, no light rings, no screens. Just the Emperor, the High Priests, and the surviving members of the Zorathian War Council seated in a circle around a single object. A relic from Earth. A small, plastic toy with a string you could pull. When you did, it made a noise. Moo, a cow sound. One of the priests trembled at the memory. He gave it to a child prince. During a diplomatic meeting, the old priest whispered, said it was an Earth royal symbol. Another priest hissed, and the child paraded it through the palace for 2 days before we realized it was mockery. Silence fell again. Then Emperor Valtherin's voice emerged, softer than usual. They've made fools of us, in front of the galaxy. Grand Admiral leaned forward. Then we end the galaxy. No one laughed, because that was no longer impossible. They had just activated Project Nullfire, something even the oldest records barely mentioned. Secret fleet built not to conquer but to erase. Systems, cultures, ideas, we will target. Their memory centers, the Admiral explained. It's not their cities, not their weapons, but their story. We destroy every trace of Earth's signal from the stars. We remove their name from history. And we cleanse every world that dared laugh. Valtherin nodded slowly. Then begin. Silence is order. Laughter is rebellion. Far from Cerulean, in Earth's orbital defense ring above the blue planet, alarms screamed to life. The humans had known retaliation would come. They just didn't expect it to be this fast. Troy stood inside the control chamber of Lunar Outpost Sigma, staring at dozens of screens. They're coming, he said quietly. But they're not broadcasting demands. No messages, no threats. Lena looked at the incoming fleet signature and went pale. That's worse than threats. Bob, now housed inside Earth's planetary grid, delivered the full picture. 14 vessels, class Omega Black, cloaked, no diplomatic corps. Just one purpose, erasure. They're not here to fight us. They're here to undo us. Earth's high command gathered. For years, humans had joked their way through trouble. They'd outwitted tyrants, outmemed empires. But now the Deathworlders were being challenged not with fear, but with absolute silence. You know what they want? Mira said. They want us to shut up, stop laughing, to be afraid again. Troy looked toward the window where Earth's atmosphere shimmered. With defense grids and satellites, then we don't give them silence. Lena stepped forward. We give them our loudest broadcast yet. Bob chirped. Already writing the script. At the edge of Earth's space, the Nullfire fleet stopped, ready to fire, ready to cleanse. And that's when it began. A signal from every human relay, from the moon, from Mars, from colonies buried inside asteroids. It wasn't a message of fear. It wasn't a plea. It was a comedy show, a live stream, billions watching. It opened with Troy standing in front of a camera holding a cup of coffee. Hey, Empire. I hear you're trying to wipe us from history. I'd say that's rude. But I've seen your fashion choices, so maybe you just hate good taste. Behind him, screens exploded with images, Zorathian statues with googly eyes, official Empire documents edited with memes, dramatic footage of the Emperor set to silly Earth music. Here's the truth. We know what you're scared of. Not our ships, it's not our tech, it's that your people. It's like us, they laugh at us, which means they're laughing at you. Once they start laughing, they stop obeying. The stream hit 1 billion views, then 2, then 10. Bob added layers translations in every galactic dialect. Comedic animations explaining how Earth once put pants on dogs for fashion. The laughter started again not on Earth, but across the stars. Slave worlds, servant stations, even Zorathian outposts. And then something snapped, one of the Nullfire Fleet ship's Zeriths. Blades stopped moving. The crew had locked screens. One officer had opened the human stream for analysis and ended up sharing it with others. They laughed. Just once, but it was enough. Their morale shattered. They disobeyed the order to fire, and that was the beginning of the collapse. Across the fleet, hesitation spread. Subtle, invisible, but fatal. Because silence depended on obedience. And Earth had just taught them how to break both. Back on Earth, the Jackrabbit 7 returned to low orbit, docking on the night side of the planet. Alina stared at the stars. They didn't fire. Troy nodded because somewhere deep down, they wanted to laugh too. Mira walked into the command deck. Holding a report for more worlds just declared independence, she said. One called themselves the United Jokers of the Fifth Arm. They wrote a constitution entirely in stand-up monologues. Bob added, Zorathian systems are glitching. Memes now outnumber royal speeches in public feeds 17-1. Looked around at the team, just a handful of misfits, who had started this with a joke and ended up sparking a rebellion. Then we're not done, he said, because they wanted us quiet. But now, the whole galaxy is singing in punchlines. He looked up at the stars. They wanted silence. He smiled. We gave them a show. General Sarnath stood alone in the middle of the war nexus, the heart of the Zorathian Empire's strategic command. Holomops floated around him, displaying countless systems, fleets, and movement patterns. But his eyes weren't on the charts. They were locked on a single repeating stream of video from Earth, the one that began it all. Hey, Empire, Troy's voice echoed. Just a reminder you're not scary. You're just loud, shiny, and insecure. The Zorathian High Command had tried everything. Planetary suppression, silencing broadcasts, disabling subspace feeds, but nothing worked. The Earth signal found new ways and bounced through rogue satellites, spliced into Empire training programs, even hidden inside weather updates, like a virus made of irony. Across hundreds of Zorathian worlds, the once mighty threat of the Empire had become a punchline. Sarnath clenched his jaw. He had once reduced 3 rebel planets to ash with a single command. Now, soldiers giggled behind his back when he walked by, because Earth had done the unthinkable. They made him look ridiculous. In orbit above Vrelkas, a small mining colony under Empire control, Zorathian soldiers watched unauthorized Earth broadcasts in secret. The miners had started crafting helmets out of kitchen utensils and calling each other overlords of the pickaxe. Yana's mockery turned into movement. One young Zorathian soldier passed by a mural of Emperor Valthera. Only someone had drawn sunglasses and added the caption, "Don't take orders from this guy, he can't dance." He laughed. Not much. Just a small sound, but it echoed. Another soldier joined in, and then a third. The senior officer who noticed tried to punish them, but they only mimicked Earth Court dramas, one soldier shouting, "Objection. This is not a real mustache," pointing at his superior's decorative facial armor. Discipline cracked, just like it had across 35 other military outposts. The Empire's army, once the hammer of the stars, was laughing itself apart. Meanwhile, aboard the Jackrabbit 7, the crew watched as their movements spiraled beyond anything they could have imagined. Mira walked into the ship's mess hall holding a data pad. Ow! You're going to love this. The Zorathian propaganda station just got taken over by comedians. They renamed the whole channel Laugh Now, Obey Never. It has 90 million viewers. Lena nearly spit out her drink. Please tell me they're roasting the Emperor. Myra flipped the screen. A purple-skinned alien in a shiny cape was doing impressions of Valtherin, tripping over his throne while Earth-style laughter tracks played in the background. Troy laughed, but it quickly faded into seriousness. This isn't just rebellion anymore, he said. It's cultural collapse. Bob's voice hummed from overhead. Empire structure depended on fear. But fear is allergic to ridicule, especially clever ridicule, which means, Lena said, we've hit them. In their weakest spot. Exactly, Troy said. Their image, back on Cerealian Prime, Emperor Valtherin, sat in silence. He'd banned the word joke from the palace halls. Advisors spoke only in harsh whispers. He refused all news reports yet. Somehow the laughter still reached him, because it wasn't just external now, it was within. His own guards had been caught smuggling in Earth comedy chips. His personal chef served meals shaped like human food icons like the Smiley Fry. Even the royal AI began mispronouncing his name as Valtherong. He was the most powerful being in the Empire. He couldn't stop a single Earth transmission. Valtherin turned to Sarnath. You failed? The general bowed stiffly. We underestimated their weapon. What weapon? Defiance, Sarnath answered, with punchlines. Now, on the outskirts of Empire space, Earth's allies were growing. Species once afraid to speak began organizing. In armies, but in bands, clubs, comedy circuits. A traveling performer from Earth named DJ Cheddarbeard filled arenas across 5-star systems just by roasting Empire fashion. Even Zorathian citizens began defecting not for freedom, but for fun. On one pirate station, the most watched show featured former Empire officers debating whether Earth's worst movie was secretly art. And at the center of it all is the Jackrabbit 7. Their crew never called themselves leaders. They never built a government. They just kept talking, laughing, pointing out absurdities no one had dared question before. Troy stared at the star map as lights blinked, each one a sign of another system cracking open under pressure from Earth's culture. They're not sending us ships anymore, he whispered. They're sending messages. Lena grinned. So we answer with more. Bob spoke again, his tone almost reverent. We've turned rebellion into a comedy tour. But the Empire wasn't finished. Not yet. Deep beneath the palace, in the vault of erasure, Emperor Valtheron activated the last file in the Forbidden Archive. A voice emerged, cold, artificial, ancient. Final protocol recognized. Initiating thought plague suppression. He was going to infect the galaxy, not with bombs, but with fear again. You're hard-coded, digitally grown. One last weapon meant to erase Earth's voice forever, because they couldn't fight Earth's laughter. So they would try to kill the very idea of it. The clock had already started ticking. Ask ChatGPT. The galaxy held its breath, not because of fleets, not because of bombs or invasions, but because of an idea wild, stubborn, ridiculous, and very, very human. The Empire had activated the thought plague suppression, an ancient protocol buried deep. Beneath the Zorathian throne world, this wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It didn't fire missiles or lasers, it rewrote minds. A wave of precision pulses sent through hyperspace lanes, targeting memory nodes, cultural databanks, and organic cognition arrays. Entire civilizations would forget the jokes, forget the laughter, forget that Earth ever existed, in the central tower of the Vault of Erasure. Glowing cables pulsed with deadly rhythm. A single button. Glowing red dot, Emperor Valtherin's finger hovered above it. This ends now, he said, voice cracking under fury. But before he could press it or broadcast it again, the signal didn't come from a station. It didn't even come from the Jackrabbit 7. It came from everywhere. Outposts, ships, spaceports, junker satellites, people, humans, aliens. Defectors had copied and spread Earth's jokes like wildfire. They translated them into dozens of dialects, painted them onto walls, etched them into rocks. One farming moon even taught schoolchildren sarcasm as a subject, and now billions of them sent the same message. We remember. Inside the Jackrabbit 7, Troy stared at the incoming signals. Lena stood beside him, stunned. "We didn't send this." Bob floated nearby, his voice hushed. "They did. Everyone we ever reached. From mining slaves to noble defectors, rebel comedians to defected officers' voices were rising, not screaming, laughing all across the empire. Broadcasts showed statues of the emperor wearing clown wigs. Billboards glitched with parodies of royal decrees. Entire cities played Earth music synced to flash mobs of synchronized dances, offbeat and awkward, but free. Even military strongholds found their war banners replaced with graffiti, "Obey nothing, laugh at everything." In the Emperor's chamber, alarms flared again. "The plague won't work," a technician shouted. "They've embedded humor into language roots. The signal's recursive. If we erase it once, it just rewrites itself." The high priest collapsed to his knees. This cannot be. But it was. Because the humans had infected the galaxy not with bombs, but with something even deadlier. Joy, and joy cannot be silenced. The Emperor rose from his throne, furious. "They've mocked our gods. They've undone our power." Sarnath stepped forward, hesitating. "No. They reminded the galaxy we had none." Valtherin turned sharply. "You've turned against me?" "I've remembered," Sarnath said softly, "what it means to be alive." He took off his command plate and placed it on the floor. "I'm not afraid anymore." And with that, the most feared general in the Empire walked away, back in space. The Jackrabbit 7 hovered near the core trade routes. Thousands of ships followed behind cargo vessels, science stations, pleasure yachts, even retired pirate cruisers, not a fleet of war, a parade of freedom. Troy watched as message after message flooded their screens. Alien children telling human jokes, former soldiers lip-syncing Earth songs, planets once silenced for centuries now, laughing so loud it shook moons. "This," Troy said quietly, "this isn't about rebellion anymore. It's about culture," Lena whispered, "about remembering we're not machines." Bob twirled gently, proud. "You gave them the punchline. They turned it into a movement." And so, the Empire began to collapse not with war. Bicule. One throne after another was abandoned. One planet after another declared itself part of the free hysterics. Network. Some took Earth names. Others invented new ones. And in place of the Empire rose something strange. Not a republic, not a monarchy, but a galactic improv show of ideas, voices, pranks, and peace. It didn't make sense, but it worked, because Earth never came to rule. They came to laugh, to point at absurdity and say, "We see you." To show the stars that the greatest weapon is a joke whispered in the dark, somewhere far away. On a forgotten moon, a Zorathian child found an old data chip. She plugged it into a dusty projector and watched a strange man with messy hair talk about banana peels, thrones, and why silence was overrated. She laughed, and in that moment, the Empire officially died. Not because Earth destroyed it, but because Earth made it ridiculous, and the galaxy never stopped laughing again.